Well, good morning, everybody. Hey, it's a new week, and I was out all last week, so it's good to be here. Hopefully, everybody has had a good week. It's been a little bit for me. I'll tell you a little bit about what's going on with me. It was a wild ride. Let me see here. Let me get adjusted real quick. You know, when you take a week off, you get rusty on everything. There we go. Getting cameras positioned. Things are rolling. Very good. Well, thank you guys for being here. Thank you for coming in for another week. I know it's been a little over a week actually. I think my last stream was the Wednesday before last week, so it's been a little bit. I basically lost my voice. I woke up. I think it was Saturday morning. Yeah, last Saturday morning, and couldn't talk. And then it took an entire week of monitoring it and that kind of stuff, and basically sinus infection, that kind of stuff. Didn't know I had, and all those type of things happened. So it was wild. So I could not speak for a couple days, and then could only whisper, and then kind of begin getting my voice back. Still a little raspy, but definitely it is back. So I can come back here live. And it was funny. I had a whole show planned out for Monday, talking about the things we've been talking about, the private listing network and all that kind of stuff. And I scratched that for today. I feel like that's just a redundant conversation. It's not anything that's really that important right now. We're going to see how all that lands. I mean, it's important, but it's not like it's pressing. I think there's more things kind of going on in our market that we need to be talking about. So today we're going to do that. Today we're going to do that. So hopefully you guys got your coffee. You can join me and drink some coffee as we go through some of the real estate news. And if this is your first time here, let me tell you just a little bit about what I do. I come on live Monday through Thursday. Sometimes there's obviously a schedule flaw there, and I can't come on Monday through Thursday, but I try to. Come on at 8:30 a.m. Eastern time. I come on here where you're watching me now, and I basically just do what I do every morning. I have done it for many years. Is I go through specifically real estate news. I go through and I read them, kind of figure out what's kind of going on, and then pull kind of opportunity out of those articles, use that in my sales meetings with my agents, help them to kind of stay on point as well. It's just a way to kind of keep informed. So I'll talk everything about like more general news in the real estate, in the economy, and I'll hone in specifically into the real estate industry as well. So good morning from Orlando. Have my Starbucks and ready for the morning brief. Let's go, buddy. Good to see you. Thank you for being here. Century 21 Edge. Great. Good to see you. So that's what I do here. I basically read through the news, kind of go through the data, kind of see what's going on, pressing in there, and we get into it. So today is no different. Today we're going to be doing that. I'll give you kind of a rundown about what we're talking about today and just the conversation we're going to have. Please, Kevin. Okay, I had a feeling that was you, man, when I saw Century 21 Edge. Kevin, good to see you, man. I'm glad you're tuning in. It's been a while. We'll catch up. I know we're going to be, are you going to be in Vegas? Let me know if you're going to be in Vegas. I'll be there. So we need to connect when you're in there, my friend. That'd be awesome. So today, what we're going to be discussing, I'll briefly talk about the mortgage news, kind of what's going on with the interest rate. That kind of sucks, actually. But then we're going to get into an article by CNBC, and also, let's see, what's this one by? This was by The Street, and our good old friend, the financial planner Dave Ramsey, he's weighed in to the real estate market, and he actually has some really good things to say. I appreciate him. I don't agree with him on everything. I think there's some things just with anybody, I might agree with some, not others. There's some that I wouldn't agree with Dave Ramsey on, and there's others I would. So he has a kind of a good perspective about real estate. So we're going to talk about that. And then this, Kevin, this will be a good conversation for you because I'm going to hone in on a Florida conversation where, and I know you've heard of this. Florida man let ChatGPT sell his home. It closed in 5 days and beat all other agents. So we're going to talk about that one. And then we'll break down, which is a relevant article in response to kind of that one. And it's by Inman. It says, AI cannot read the room. Agents weigh in on the promise and limits of artificial intelligence. So we're going to sandwich those two together because I think it's a very good conversation to have because, man, everywhere I go, people are talking about like, oh, how, AI is going to replace this job and this career and that kind of stuff. And look, I understand. It's like the new .com craze. There are elements of AI that will absolutely fundamentally change what we do and how we do it. But there are some things that it just cannot do. And that's just with any kind of technology. There are limits to it. I think for the most part, AI has, a lot of asset to it. I think there's a benefit to it, but there's a certain way we use it and leverage it. So With all that being said, let's go ahead and jump in now. Welcome to the Real Estate Brief. I'm Adam. Today we're going to be cutting through the noise. We're going to get to the truth in the news, look at the data, and I'm going to give you some of my observations and where I believe you can find some opportunity. So if you're ready to gain your real estate edge, let's dive into our very first story. And before typical intro, before we get into the actual story, we're going to talk about the mortgage news. So let's go ahead and talk about that real quick. Real briefly, I mean, this is a website I talk about all the time. It's Mortgage News Daily. If most agents will have this. If you don't, I do recommend it. It doesn't mean it's extremely accurate as far as what every loan officer is going to be able to offer you, but it does give you a good observation quickly into what the interest rates currently are. And so let's begin there. And this is the quick graph. They also have an app. You can download that. It has calculators, all that kind of stuff on it. It's just a good little asset. But this is the current rate that we're at right now. And yeah, if we were to go back a month or so ago, you heard me talk about we hit the 5.99. Now, remember that, interest rates are tied to the bond market to some degree. They fluctuate every single day. Most of the time, they only set that rate once a day. And it fluctuates depending on what's going on in the bond market. So that's a big factor in this to some degree. And when we start talking about like Iran and fuel and the economy as a whole, that's going to have an adverse effect against interest rates. So this is not a surprise. And you probably heard me talk about this all the time, is the market looks good unless we have something else happen. And that's usually what happens with the economy, is everything's great and we can do all these projections, but then something can happen somewhere else. And it's all obviously going to affect us in this realm as well, especially with the real estate industry. It does affect us a lot. But this is currently where we're sitting at. 30-year fixed rate is 6.64. So since yesterday, it's up 0.02. 15 years at 6.15. So right now, there is not a deal here where you can get under 6. But let's don't forget, though, the historical average is 7.2 to 7.4, depending on your state. So we are still well under the national average in the past 30, 40, 50 years. So it's still a good rate. Obviously, it was better about a month ago. But this is not anything too drastic, guys. I mean, I understand there's a lot of out there that, hey, we have a low interest rate of 2.5%, 3%. I'm not going to say never, but it's highly, highly unlikely we will ever see those interest rates again. So just keep that in mind. All right, let's go ahead now, and we're going to jump into kind of a conversation. We've had this conversation a lot, talking about the big housing bill that's been passed. So I'm just going to briefly go over this article. I say briefly, I like to talk, so we'll see how that goes. But this is an article that's titled "Trump Ban on Investor Home Buying May Come at Cost of a Bigger Real Estate Deal." So there's kind of we've had a lot of conversations in regards to this large investors being banned from buying up swaths of homes and residential homes. This article is going to focus on that, but it's also going to be shifting more into the idea too that that's what we're talking about. We're hearing a lot of noise about that, but there's this mobile home chassis type situation that is actually a much larger issue or benefit to this bill being passed, and how it's going to open up a lot more opportunity for residential real estate and home ownership, especially the first time home buyer market, if we can predict it that way. So that's kind of what this article is going to be talking about. So we're going to just kind of briefly go through this real quick, because I think it's a good conversation to have, to keep on the forefront of our mind, because it's being talked about and it could come into law and be passed. And we have all kinds of new benefits here. So we'll see what happens. And again, I go back to this. I'm going to just say at the very beginning, this is a bipartisan bill. I just love that, because there are so many times that you have this divide in our politics where it's them against us and us against them, and there's just this tension there. When you can come together, and I'm so appreciative that it is real estate focused, that you have a bipartisan agreement, and overwhelmingly, and this article kind of talks about that. But anyway, I just want to applaud that. I wish we could see more of that, and I understand that I understand the difficulty of politics, but still, let's applaud the good. And this is something to applaud, because I think the bipartisan bills are always good. Like I said, the Trump ban on investor home buying may come at a cost of a bigger real estate deal. Bob Woods is the guy that wrote this article, CNBC. He says, key points: the Senate's Road to Housing Act has more than 40 provisions with rare bipartisan support aimed at lowering housing costs and speeding up new home construction. This is kind of the key. It says none gets more attention than President Trump's ban on institutional investors buying up single family homes, and none stands in the way to a greater extent in getting the bill passed in both chambers of Congress. This is the point of tension where the bill's at right now. It's the news articles everywhere you read. If you were to type in that ban on institutional investors, every single news out there has an opinion on this. Some are for it. Some are like, oh, doesn't even affect anything. It's a very small percentage of the market. It doesn't really matter that much. There's all those type of things. I land on the side that, just because something's small and a smaller percentage doesn't mean it's not relevant. I think there's something to be, kind of vegged out here a little bit and kind of get down to the weeds in. I think there are areas where this is truly a factor. Now, is this going to have, major, consequences throughout the whole nation when this passes? I don't think so. But there are very strong areas where this is a big thing and it is affecting a lot of these markets. So again, yes, it's getting a whole lot of focus. And that's where you put that search in there, you'll see all kinds of people's opinions. But then the next statement here, the key points, is really where the conversation you can't really hear much about. Now, it's starting to kind of happen because it is a bigger factor. And here it is. It says, but factory-built manufactured homes, such as those built by Berkshire Hathaway's Clayton Homes, which, if you're out there, I did not know, and maybe you guys did, I did not know that Berkshire Hathaway owned Clayton Homes. I had no idea. Usually I try to follow these type of things, and I don't know if that's a more recent thing. Let me know in the comments if it is. I didn't know that, which would receive a huge boost from the Road Act, may be far more consequential toward the overarching goal of adding housing supply and making the American dream more affordable. And that's really the key, right? That's what this whole bill's about, is trying to make homes more affordable and help that American dream move forward. So this is the more point that they're trying to make here. And this is where they're trying to bring attention to this. So I think this is a good way to do it. All right. So it says affordability has gone from being a dry financial term to an all-purpose hot button. And we know this. And we look at any kind of industry across the board. They mention it here: groceries, healthcare, childcare, gas, you name it, right? All of them. If you look at that in a whole, every single part has been hit. I was even talking to my son yesterday. We were talking about him, driving to see his girlfriend and driving to go to church and, go to work and all this kind of stuff. And it's like, man, do you realize that what you're being paid now to go to work has now just went down because of the cost to get to work? We were doing the math on how much now it costs him to get to work and back. And that's a big factor. So you got to cut back somewhere, and especially if you're my son and you don't have the largest amount of income, and you got to start budgeting a little bit more. You got to be a little bit more wise with your money. So we're having those kind of conversations, trying to help him navigate that, because these are real deals and this does affect the bottom line. And we know this, if you've been living any kind of, adult life, you understand how these things hurt the economy overall. So these are all factors. It says on March 12th, the U.S. Senate passed a massive housing bill addressing affordability and supply, mostly of single-family homes. The 21st Century Road to Housing Act, chock full of more than 40 provisions. If you go back to some of my live streams, I didn't go through all of them, but I went through some of the ones. There's also some links in there to the bill. If you're into reading those type of things, they're really long. I think this one's like 2,000 pages or something ridiculous. But there are 40 provisions inside of there, all aimed at addressing the housing, the affordability. Okay, so there's a lot in this bill. By today's rancorous political standards, bipartisan support tallying 89 to 10. 89 to 10. Again, I'm going to pause there, applaud that. Well done. I love it. Let's see more of that. The bill features a slew of financing, permitting, zoning, and environmental reforms aimed at lowering housing costs and speeding up new home construction. The House passed an equally bipartisan, if pared down, version in February. The Senate bill, which adopted many of House provisions, now moves back to the lower chamber for consideration, where it's facing uphill battle, primarily over the contentious issue of whether large institutional investors should continue buying and renting homes, a practice decried by both progressive stalwart Senator Elizabeth Warren, Democrat of Massachusetts, a co-sponsor of the Road Act, and President Donald Trump, who issued an executive order in January calling for an end to the practice. Here's the thing is, and this is where bills kind of die sometimes, is like they get into this and we hone in on one specific thing and we miss out on all the others. And going back to originally they were arguing that this would not affect that many people. Now they're pushing back to saying that it now is, it's the big contentious issue. Like, people have different opinions on this, and it's stopping the bill to get passed. And there's so much more in this bill that we need to be focusing on. So the part that I like about this is that even CNBC is going to flip the script just a little bit and hone in on one of the biggest factors that really we should be focusing on that could ultimately truly help the housing industry. And to be honest, I would say as real estate agents and as National Association of Realtors and all that kind of stuff, RPAC, everybody needs to be talking about this next, the whole concept of the mobile home industry and what that looks like, the manufactured homes. Ironically, that so-called build to rent portion of the housing market is relatively small compared to another one, factory built manufactured homes. Okay, so this is where it's going to be the biggest change. It says the bill allows manufactured homes to be assembled without a permanent chassis, increasing federal loan limits for buyers and relaxes zoning regulations on where they can be sited. Those changes go a long way toward removing stigma hanging overpriced or low-priced mobile homes. So that makes them more like permanent real estate, right? You get rid of the chassis, they have a permanent foundations, that kind of stuff. They be moved into the site, they become permanent real estate. And then you cut down some of the zoning, the regulations that deregulate the requirement for certain types of homes to be built on site, allows these to be sold more, and the cost of entry is a whole lot lower. So that's a significant change, right? So that's where really this bill could do some really good things in the housing industry. It says that is a challenge we've had, said Dr. Leslie Gooch, CEO of the Manufactured Housing Institute, the industry's trade association. It says, quote, the stigma comes from what our houses look like and the elevations we're able to offer. We will now be allowed under our federal building code to build more housing types, she said. We were constrained for 50 years that every house we built had to be on a permanent chassis. Now, the funny thing is, I don't know a lot about the mobile manufactured home industry. I mean, in my years when I was actively selling and listing, I mean, obviously I sold and listed a bunch of those, but it was a very small percentage of the amount that I did. Someone out there might have more experience with this. I didn't know that. I knew they had to have a chassis, but I didn't know if it had to be a permanent one. I was wondering if it could be removed, that kind of stuff, because I know they will do that to convert it to real estate. But I did not know that was actually not allowed. So that being removed, that's a very significant thing. It says by allowing for removable chassis, the bill will enable manufactured homes builders to innovate design, said Bill Bohr, CEO of Cavco Industries, one of the industry's largest companies, in an email statement. He said, quote, while we'll still make permanent chassis homes, the ability to also make removable chassis homes will continue to break down zoning barriers and increase the supply of lower cost, high quality homes, he wrote. In anticipation of the legislative changes, Bohr says Cavco has invested heavily in retooling its existing plants to increase capacity and change its production processes where possible. And again, he quotes, similarly, in the last 2 years, we have unified our branding under the Cavco name to expand recognition in the marketplace and segment our extensive product offering, he wrote. So this is the interesting thing. And I actually had a conversation, and this was years ago. And I want to see if you guys have had this conversation at all with an engineer. I talked to an engineer about mobile homes, manufactured homes, and the quality that they are, and that kind of stuff. And an engineer even said, and again, one person's opinion, but he said you're dealing with a home that is completely designed, built in factory repeatedly, that engineers have had an opinion on. And the amount of air inside of some of these manufactured homes is way less. Now, depending on the quality of materials and stuff like that, obviously is a factor. The engineer was telling me, like, when a home is manufactured in a factory and it's an engineered plan, it's a very consistent build. So a lot of times you're getting a really strong structure. Now, that's a structure that you can't jeopardize by adding to it in a certain way. You know, headers are put in different places and those type of things. So if you were to add a porch onto it, or, an addition, those type of things, you got to do it in a certain way because you could jeopardize the integrity of the engineered manufactured home. But as a whole, though, he was making the argument that they're a really strong and durable type of home. So now if you take that whole idea and you combine it to now that this is happening, the flexibility for these companies to be able to manufacture homes that have way more design and way more features built into them because they don't have to have this permanent chassis attached, opens up some doors. I think this is an opportunity here where you could see a big industry push into manufactured type homes being built. So anyway, years ago too, I sold a Sears and Roebuck's house. The people had the whole plan, the catalog they ordered the house from, and all that kind of stuff. Not the same as this, but that's still a very fascinating thing where they would ship all the parts to your house on a train, and you would unload it and then build your house on site. But still kind of neat. It's kind of where it evolved into this. We'll skip on down because we kind of understand what this is. I'm not going to labor too much more on the benefit here, but I think we kind of get the idea. All right, Daryl Fairweather, chief economist for Redfin, a national real estate brokerage firm, deems the manufactured housing provisions as the most important parts of the ROAD Act. He says, quote, the incentives for zoning reform and other deregulations will matter in parts of the country that have severe housing shortages, she said. I'm most excited about building more manufactured housing in places where land values are very high because there's a lack of available land to build on. The National Association of Realtors has expressed its support for the Senate bill in a statement from its executive vice president and chief advocacy officer, Shannon McGann. The quote, the bill gives communities new tools and resources to build more homes, streamlines federal processes that delay construction and updates financial options for manufactured and rural housing. That's another thing too. It opens up financial opportunity here too. So there's a lot here. So it's going to be interesting to kind of watch how this evolves. Reading through this bill, I actually read through all the different 40, propositions that they made in that bill, and they're all really good. I mean, you could push back on a few of these type of things, but no bill's perfect. I think there's a lot in this bill that it needs to pass, and we need to get on with this, and let's make this thing happen because I think there's a lot of good here. Our industry needs it. All right. I won't label this too much more. I don't think there's anything else to really kind of veg out here inside of this article. I mean, there's obviously many more things we could be talking about inside of this article, but you get the idea of the two, correlations. What I would write this article with saying is I would just simply say, if you are in a conversation with somebody talking about this bill, or you're reading an article and there's a comment section, I would encourage you to, especially if they're talking about like the ban on institutional housing and that kind of stuff, and that's the whole entire topic of this, we need to make sure that the same person that is in that conversation is focusing more on the whole of the bill, because there's a lot more in it. And I don't want to be just so, tunnel visioned into just seeing it as a housing ban, for big investors. But yet you look at this one topic, this manufactured home, and you just think through the big change that would bring into the housing market, and especially for housing, for first-time home buyers, those type of stuff, and bring that affordability down. This is a big bill. So I would just, as an agent, I would be very proactive with RPAC and your National Association of Realtors, verbalizing this and going into articles where they talk about this and voicing your opinion. Look, you are a realtor, you're a real estate agent, you have an opinion, and you have experience in this industry. They need to hear from us. They need to hear from us. That right, senators and legislators and that kind of stuff. Send letters into them in support of this. Team up with your local RPAC and really get the word out that there's more in this bill than just that housing ban for investors. Right, way more going on. So just that would be my encouragement, kind of the takeaways from this article. All right. Let's go into our second one. This one here is by thestreet.com. It's titled, Dave Ramsey has blunt warning on real estate housing market. It says the best-selling personal finance author raises a red flag on one major fact about buying and selling homes. Now, this is so funny. Like when you read headlines like this, it was funny. I didn't know where this article was going when I read it this morning. I was like, man, golly, is Dave Ramsey coming out against it, or is the real estate market going to be bad? If you read the headline, you're kind of left trying to figure out what's going on, right? That's the design, right? That's what the whole headline's for. So Dave Ramsey in this article and the street is definitely going to make some waves with that kind of headline, right? And it almost comes off like a big warning. Buy now, don't miss out. It has this kind of attitude towards it, maybe a little bit of a fear-based language. that kind of stuff. So let's just now get into the actual article, though, and it was actually more, wasn't that crazy. So let me see if I can get this just share a little bit. It's really small. Let me do this. Man, this art. You know what, people? Quit pop-up ads, guys. Come on. Okay, you're gonna have to really focus because there's distractions going on. So I'm sorry for anybody that has ADD because you're gonna struggle on this one. I can't even get rid of that one. Look at that. It goes with me. I tell you what, man. Oh, the pop-ups, man. That's old school. All right. So this is the article. This is written. Gosh, who is this written? Jeffrey Quiggle. I think he runs the street because he does. Jeffrey Quiggle does a lot of articles. I think he's always the one that does thestreet.com. So he has some good stuff. So let me just go through here. The key points here that's in this article, and this is where we're going to talk about it. 30-year fixed rate mortgage settled at 6.64 on March 27th. Yeah, that's the first point. Another point is, he says, Dave Ramsey stresses, and this is the cool part, that real estate agents' expertise saves buyers and sellers significant money and stress. Let's go, Dave. Kudos, buddy. I love that you said that. And the third key point out of this, it says, agents' skills include market knowledge, negotiation, and managing complex transactions for best outcomes. All right, Dave Ramsey. Good job, buddy. I'm so glad you said that. I wholeheartedly agree. And the funny thing is, if you're a consumer listening and you've bought a house, hopefully you've had a great experience with a real estate agent. I understand sometimes that doesn't happen. Sometimes there's issues. But overall, you can see the value of a real estate agent. They save you money. All right, it says on March 26, Freddie Mac released the results of its primary mortgage market survey, finding that the weekly 30-year fixed rate mortgage was average 6.38. And the quote was this: the housing market continues to show gradual improvements compared to a year ago amid recent rate volatility, said Freddie Mac chief economist Sam Qatar. Purchase and refinance applications are up year over year, and rates remain lower than last year when they averaged 6.65. What an optimistic opening line, right? Man, I love that. Because yes, there is a little bit of this angst in the interest rate, but they framed it perfectly to say, look, let's put this into greater context so we can truly understand that this is not as bad as it has been. And we talk about this all the time, the lock-in effect and all that kind of stuff. Like, man, you got 4 or 5 years ago, people bought the 7.5%, 8% interest rates, and some were 7, maybe high 6s. But they bought 4 years ago, they weren't in the 2.5%, 3% range. So we don't have a massive lock-in effect. There is still a lock-in effect, but not as it's diminishing as the years go by. Anyway, good job on that opening line. Gosh, can I not get rid of this file pet? I'm sorry. That just, it's a pet peeve. All right. It says the next day, the daily 30-year hovered near 6.7 before settling at 6.64. We're going to skip on down. All right. Dave Ramsey warns Americans about importance of real estate agents. See, this is not where I thought the article was going to go. I was trying to figure this out. So this is good. It says, as mortgage rates rise, home buying and selling become difficult, rattling the housing market amid a drop in sales. As these economic trends affect individuals, best-selling personal finance author and radio host Dave Ramsey offers a warning about real estate investments such as homes. Here's his quote: whether you're buying or selling a house, you're dealing with a lot of cash. Ramsey wrote, but here's the thing. Just one mistake during the home buying or home selling process can cost you tens of thousands of dollars. So it's no wonder why 88% of all buyers and 91% of sellers decide it's worth working with a real estate professional. Ramsey continued, because when you have a solid pro on your side, they'll take care of the nitty-gritty details. I would say with all exuberance inside of me, amen, amen, amen. Because you are one mistake away from being very expensive. You know, there was a situation that happened inside of our brokerage just recently where the buyer was buying the house. The agent noticed there was a line running out of the house. The description, everything said septic tank and all this kind of stuff, but there was a line running out of the house. And guess what? There was no septic system. They were just sending that stuff down a creek. So the agent themselves noticed this, even though it got under contract and everything before they noticed it, but they noticed it and they called it out and found that there was no septic system there. And it was just sending the sewage all down into the creek. So the question would be, would the inspector have found that? Would they have not? Would the homeowner, the new buyer found that out? Or they would have went to closing and not known that? Can you imagine the cost to put in a septic system that wasn't there, right? The excavation, putting the system in, tying it all in, putting the leach field in. Think about that. That's one example of many. When you're dealing with this much cash and this many little intricate details, it's a very complex transaction. And if you're a real estate agent, you know that's true. So you know that's true. And you are one mistake away, one miss from thousands of dollars in costs. We see homes every single day. Every single day we see them. Ramsey acknowledges that working with the real estate involves expenses, but argues that those costs are justified. He goes on to say this, quote, real estate agents are usually paid via commission. For example, 3% of a home's purchase price for helping you close on a home, Ramsey explained. For example, and he gives the analogy. He says, now he goes on to explain the value of real estate agents. He says, Ramsey clarified his view that real estate agents are very much worth the money. He goes on to say this, when you hire a buyer's agent, you're getting someone on your side who looks at hundreds of homes every year and helps tons of families navigate the home buying process. A buyer's agent brings experience, market knowledge, and negotiation skills to the table that can save you time, money, and tons of stress. Now, we're just going to pause here for just 1 second because this is for two people, okay? The first person that statement is for the consumer. The obvious one that's for, that Ramsey is speaking to, is his listeners. He's saying you that are going out and buying a house need to use an agent. Comes with a cost, but worth it. Because of why? They're going to have market knowledge. They're going to have negotiation skills. They're going to know how to save you time and all that experiences. They're coming to the table with all that information, right? It's going to save you thousands of dollars and protect your interest. So he's going to recommend it. So the first person that's for is the listeners of Dave Ramsey. Majority of them are consumers. The second one, though, is us as real estate agents. Because we have to understand that, yes, we are those things, but it requires something from us to be those things. If you're going to be somebody that has experience, that has market knowledge, that has the skills to negotiate, can represent your client with the fiduciary responsibility requires learning, education, submitting to, teaching and pouring in and getting experience and learning and doing these type of things, reading through news, all of this kind of stuff is your job. So even though Dave Ramsey is making a blanketed statement, the question I'd propose back to you, are you one of those agents? Are you doing the things that Dave Ramsey is recommending that are telling his audience that we do as real estate agents? He's making a statement. And if he's making a statement to this, then it's our burden to carry. We have to be what he's saying to keep him saying it, right? So I'm just encouraging you guys to be that type of agent. Is there a link to his ELP program at the end of this article? Hey, I'll find it, Dapper. I'll find this for you. Yeah, I will. I'll see if I can find it. I would like to see how this works too. Like, it'd be kind of cool to listen to this. I'd say this was on his podcast, right? I mean, that's what I would assume. But yeah, I'll find that for you. All right. Ramsey's list of top buyers agents tasks. So doesn't mean Dave Ramsey is the orator of truth, but he is somebody on the outside, has a lot of experience with real estate, using real estate agents as the example. Here's the contrasting thing that we want to make sure we do. At a very minimum, we want to make sure that we meet the standard that anybody is saying that we do, right? Because again, the burden's on us to maintain that standard. If the consumer is looking for this professional and they're saying that this is what we are, let's do what we can to match up to that. So if you're a broker listening, or if you're an agent listening, these are the things that the people on the other side say is our value. So this is why I wanted to bring this article up, because these are the things that Ramsey has millions of followers are saying about agents. All right. So if I was to say develop skills as real estate agents, these would be some of those. Ramsey lists top buyer agents task. He says a strong buyer's agent helps you identify the right home in the neighborhood that best matches your needs. So inquisitive, asking questions, consulting, prying into their lives to the degree that you need to be able to help them navigate that decision. Are you just somebody that takes a call and just immediately starts running out showing houses? Or do you know your clients? Are you asking them thought-provoking questions to help them find a home? They spot potential problems early so you don't overpay or end up choosing a property that isn't a good fit. I give you an example of the septic system and not having one. Are you, when you go to show a house, are you just kind of looking at your watch trying to get to the next appointment? Are you taking your time and critiquing the house and observing the house, pointing out things that is concerns and walking them through that kind of stuff and providing information back to them? If they have a question and you don't know that question, are you actively working at that moment to get the answer? Getting on the phone with the listing agent, digging into that home, finding out more intricate details, right? That's our job. They make sure you don't overlook a home that could actually suit you well. You know, there was a guy that years ago, he was 82 years old, that worked with me. And he would sell houses multiple times. I mean, he just loved his job. But he would always say, like, I might have a list of 5 or 6 homes, but the reality is, if I had a good consultation with them, I sat down and I got everything, all the information out of them, and he would do this. This was his practice, and this is old school, but he would never just meet a client out at a house. He would always bring him into the office, sit him down in front of him, and talk to them about the house they're looking for. And he would say, we're not going to look at any houses today. We might look at one if there's one pressing that's beating down the door, that kind of stuff, maybe multiple offers. We might need to go do that, but we're going to wait until tomorrow, because I want to do a little bit of research with the information you gave me, and I'm gonna put a list together of homes that I feel like will be the most interested to you. And then he would scrutinize. He wouldn't just do a quick search on the MLS and just pull up properties, but then he would find at least 5, 2 that he could probably eliminate and 3 that he could show him the very next day. The 3 that he wanted to show him were the ones that fit the criteria the most. And he would then take them to those houses, and he would take his conversation he had with them previously the day before, and he would point out the things that they said they wanted. Because here's what happens, and if you're a real estate agent, you know this happens. You go out and you show a house, one of the parties, or if not both, get enthralled with the whole idea of certain aspects of the home. Oh, I love this, I love that. Oh, I love this way this looks. And there's this initial excitement about the home, but then they begin not to understand some of the intricate details that they are actually looking for in a home, because it's clouded by that emotional feeling of that home. And they've lost the touch of reality because now it's matched with the physical home and not what they're actually looking for. A good agent's going to take what they're looking for, going to marry it to the home that fits that need, and then it'll help them navigate that. And here's the reason why that's important, is because if you find a home that meets almost all those standards and they look at that house, they're more likely to go through the entire process of inspections, appraisal, and everything and work through it, because it's the house they ultimately want. So to work through the whole entire issue is they don't have this fear of FOMO of missing out on another house, because this house fits what they're looking for. That's a big step. It's a big difference. It's a consultative type buyer's agent. All right. They negotiate effectively on your behalf and work to protect your best interests throughout the process. We know their financial makeup. We understand their situation. We've spoken to their lender. We know what that kind of looks like. We're going to help them try to get the best price. They keep a close eye on new and updated listings so they can point you toward homes that match most of the features you're looking for. I will say this, the common trend right now is, let me set you up on a safe search and you just get the homes and then I just wait for you to call me. A proactive agent, now given, there's different levels of leads. There's some leads that are hot, cold, and warm, all that kind of, I get that. But if you're doing that for just every single lead you have and you're letting a program just select properties for them, chances are you might not be giving them the attention that they ultimately need, and they might even be going to Zillow and other places and finding other links and clicking everywhere else. But if you're actively communicating with them of homes that you found that fit their needs, you're less likely to lose a client. And that's an extra better service because you're paying attention to what they have, right? Sorry. All right. Let's see, where was I? Okay, they show you the strongest options, and when you find one you like, they help you prepare and submit a solid offer. They understand the intricate details about what the market is doing. They understand that, and they help you make that offer. After your offer is accepted, they arrange the home inspection and manage any needed repairs or contract updates. They do all that. We do. This is normal. They make sure you don't end up with a bad deal or miss important details buried in the paperwork. Now, let me just pause there, and this will be coming up in the future articles here. I gotta get going here. I'm talking way too much. But here's the thing: is if you'll notice some of these things right here, and just remember this as we go into the AI conversation. The nuances inside of each one of these categories, AI has a hard time addressing. You know, a buyer can go into an AI system and put in all the stuff that they want in a home, but it can't help them when they go to see that home and those emotions are getting triggered to remember all of the things that they put into the AI. If you talk about negotiations and the motives, all this type of stuff, there's so many nuances inside of real estate that AI can't hit. If you look at that list, you'll understand and you'll see that the value that an agent brings is way beyond what a program could ultimately offer. So we'll get into that here in just a second. All right, Ramsey lists top seller agents tasks, those agents that sellers should be doing. I'm going to speed along, and we'll get through this. I mean, there's just the funny thing is like each one of these points can be an entire session to be taught. Like I would teach an entire session with my agents on each one of these things and developing their skills, right? Each one of these would be something you can lean into to get better at. Ramsey lists top sellers agents. Okay, home sellers agent has similar qualifications, but from the other side of the transaction. And there's a link there. There's the links to all these articles in my description on YouTube. A good seller's agent gives you confidence and peace of mind when you're preparing to sell your largest asset. They understand the intricate details about what you need to do, not do, those type of things. They bring deep market knowledge. You got to have deep market knowledge, guys, to be able to give it and help you set an accurate competitive listing price. Let me just say this real quick, if I can say it quick. Pricing is key in listing properties. And it's one of those moving targets that shifts very fast and rapidly. That the only way you could be really good at pricing properties is by staying in the data in your local MLS. Like you got to stay in there. You got to get in there weekly, if not every day, looking at the hot sheet and what's going on, because different markets and different areas of your area change as well. Each market is so different. So your advice over here will not be the advice over here, especially if you're in a large city, right? You guys know that. So you can't just put a blanketed idea on this, and you can't just say what I listed homes at last week still work this week, because homes have been reduced. There's been adjustments made. So you've got to stay in the data. It's got to be part of your job. You might not like it. You might find it boring to get in there and look at your data and your statistics in your MLS, but it is the metric that tells you how to price things correctly. That's how we do that. Now, I get it. There are all kinds of software out there. If you're a realtor, you got RPR to do that. Your MLS probably has that built in, and there's many others. You know, if you're part of a brokerage, more than likely they have something like that. But the thing is all those automations help kind of bring you to a general idea. There's an element there and the nuance inside of the data that you bring to the table by staying informed in all the data that you can then help adjust it with. So you got to stay in there. You got to stay in it. You might not like it, but I would at least do it once a week. Make it your Monday ritual. You wake up in the morning, you do that, or your Friday one going into the weekend so you can kind of think through it throughout the weekend. Whatever it is, you got to stay in the data. They manage the marketing of your home and coordinate showings with qualified buyers. Obviously, got an issue going on. There we go. They guide you through evaluating offers and negotiate to secure the strongest possible deal. How good are you at negotiating, guys? Like, I mean, that's the thing is like, do you understand the angle, like when to push, when not to push, when to, give, when not to give? Like, what does this look like? They guide you through, they walk you through how to stage and present your home so it appeals to buyers. Like, you understand how much to decorate, how limit to decorate, what are the nuances that people are looking for? What's the trend? How much clutter, how much little clutter? What does this look like? Vacant versus non-vacant? Good night. They got an issue going on. They use their knowledge, gotta have the knowledge of recent sales in your area to help you set a competitive, realistic price. It's kind of a double mention there. They promote your home widely through the multiple listing service, social media, advertising to attract as many buyers as possible. This broad exposure helps your home sell quickly and for the strongest possible price. Right? I mean, that's all true, right? But these, again, are all what Ramsey is saying to his consumers, millions of them, to do. It keeps freezing up. So if that's what the outside world is saying, and that's our value, that's Ramsey's perspective. Not that he's the only one, but I don't think any of us would disagree that what he's saying out there, what he just listed out, is wrong. I think those are all the things that if I was an agent and talking directly to an agent, I would say I would lean so heavily into educating myself on those things that I think I'd become a very good agent if I did that. If I could do all those things extremely well and I had systems and processes in place to do those things, that's great. And here's the thing. It sounds like I'm so anti-AI. I'm not, actually. AI helps in the back end of almost all of those things for you guys. It doesn't replace the human element. We'll get into that. But it would help you to develop processes and systems and streamline some of those services that you offer. And there's many benefits where you should be using AI. And if you're not using AI, then you got a problem, right? I saw an article the other day, and I actually kind of agree with this. It's not that the statement is wrong, but it is kind of overdone. Like this statement is this, and you've heard this. AI will not replace agents, but agents will be replaced by those that use AI. And okay, it's oversaid, but it's true. It's got an element of truth to it. So I'm not going to say that anymore because it's definitely been oversaid. But everybody kind of understands that. All right, let's go now into our last two articles. We're going to be transitioning over into the AI conversation. We're going to talk about this. We're going to begin with talking about this article. And this funny thing is this kind of keeps popping up. Let's see, when was this? Yeah, this is March 29th. Okay, this was yesterday. 3 weeks ago, maybe 4 weweeks ago, I have a friend of mine that came up and said, "Did you hear about this man that used, AI to sell his home? Closed it in 5 days and all this kind of stuff. Beat out other agents' estimates, all that kind of stuff." And it's still being talked about. The same story is still being talked about. And so this is an article by people.com. Toria Sheffield, published on March 29th, 5:15 a.m. So yesterday morning. So let's get into this, because what's happening here is a Florida man, he's claiming he used ChatGPT to sell his home for $100,000 over asking, or more than what the agent that he met with told him it would sell for. And this is almost like having this whole idea of like, is the AI agent officially here? Has it arrived? All right, I would put this into the classic clickbait type headline because it ignores market context. Okay, it doesn't put into perspective the context about what's going on specifically in that market. I'm not calling this guy a liar, but there's always more to this story than what's being put out there. And I think this is a good conversation starter that we need to have when we start talking about value proposition, what AI is and what it isn't. And it sets us up perfectly for the last article I'm going to talk about today. So let's get into what this article said, and let's just briefly talk about it. If you have an opinion about it, let me know in the chat what your thoughts are as I read through this article. See if anything pops out to you that might be missing that could be helpful. All right. Florida man let ChatGPT sell his home. It closed in 5 days and beat all other agents' estimates by $100,000. The man said the AI tool provided guidance on things like pricing, marketing, and even which walls to paint. Okay. Stage is set. Need to know. We already talked about it. Florida man used ChatGPT. ChatGPT provided guidance on things like pricing while praising AI as a helpful tool. Here's something interesting. The very key point here. The man still worked with a real lawyer and said it doesn't replace professionals in every situation. Oh, man. The funny thing is, I had a whole, I've had multiple conversations with consumers about this. Hey, your job's on the line. Did you guys hear about this? And I'll be walking down the store, in the store somewhere, and it's like, hey, how's the real estate market? It's good. Typical question. I answer it the way I can. And it's always followed up with this article. Multiple times this has happened. Like, yeah, I heard that AI is going to be replacing your job. Or did you hear about that guy that used nothing but AI to buy his house? Are you guys worried? This is just the funny stuff. Let's get into this. A Florida man forwent a traditional real estate agent and sold his home himself with the help of ChatGPT. And the house sold for $100,000 more than real estate agents said it was worth. Robert Levine and his wife were driving from Florida to North Carolina during the 2025 holiday season when they asked ChatGPT a few basic questions about the home selling process for their Cooper City house, according to Fortune. The fun exercise eventually got more serious, and the AI software began helping them with more complex aspects of the process, like marketing and negotiating, even recommending which walls to repaint. It pushed us through all of that, including small things that I would have never thought of, Levine said while speaking to the outlet. Quote, the first impression is important. We hear that all the time about curb appeal, but also when prospective buyers walk into the house, they don't want to see scuffs on the wall, he added. ChatGPT also helped Levine, who is a father of 3 and CEO of a strategic consulting firm, schedule open houses around his busy schedule. Levine personally showed the home 15 prospective buyers, 5 of whom officially submitted applications. The home closed in 5 days per Fortune. Pause. So many questions come up. Let me know if any questions come up in your head in this little section right here. I'm going to reread it. Tell me if anything pops in your head. ChatGPT also helped Levine, who is a father of 3 and CEO of a strategic consulting firm, schedule open houses around his busy schedule. Levine personally showed the home to 15 prospective buyers, 5 of whom officially submitted applications. The home closed in 5 days per Fortune. So, first and foremost, father of 3. Does he have a wife? Does he not? Don't know. Is there anybody else helping him? We don't know. It says he's busy. How busy? Does he work from home? Does he not work from home? Okay, these are all variables. He scheduled an open house. Who was there running the open house? Who facilitated all questions of that open house? Who promoted the open house? Who handled the open house and the marketing of that open house? Who paid for the ads to get the people in the house for that marketing, right? What about all those things? What about the 15 prospective buyers that wanted to see his house? That's 15 showings. Did he go through and could he answer all the questions? Did he answer them all honestly? Right? Did the buyer get representation correctly? Was the buyer represented? Did the buyer have an agent? We don't have answers to any of these questions. We don't have any idea. We do know 5 submitted, funny thing is they use the word applications. That's a new one. Maybe an offer. So applications being used. So 5, who wrote them up for him? Did they have agents or did they not? Who helped them review those offers to make sure that their interest was protected? Did he have to pay the attorney involved every single time he got an application to review? Did he submit it to AI and AI could catch all the nuances of that and understand everything? Right? Was it a cash deal? That's why it closed in 5 days. It's being sold like it closed in 5 days, like it's some kind of miracle. That means it's cash, right? He said he and his wife ultimately sold the house for about $100,000 more than real estate agents and had estimated it was worth. You know what that means? Okay. Quantify this. How many agents are we talking about? Did he talk to 1, 2, 3, 5, 6? I mean, how many? Did those agents he talked to have good sales records, understand pricing? Were they good, strong listing agents, or did he just call a friend? Again, no verifiable data here whatsoever to go from. None at all. Continue. It says, when we met with real estate agents, they lacked confidence in pricing. ChatGPT gave us more confidence in price points of where the market was going. Again, who did you meet with? I mean, at least give us a number. Was it 2? I mean, at least it's got an S on the end, right? 2, 3, 5? What was their sales records? I mean, did you You just go out and figure out who these agents were. Like, what's the quantifying data here to say that these agents lacked confidence in pricing, but ChatGPT gave them confidence? Like, what's the metric that we're measuring this by? This is critical thinking skills. But see, this is what I'm just giving you an example of the way the consumer thinks. They read this article, goes through X and everybody else is by people. They don't use applications, right? Not offer. So they then run with this and say AI is going to do this. But you see the nuances inside of this? Like, it's not addressing anything. It's not answering any question. So one guy did it. How many other people have tried to do this and it didn't work out? How many people is this advising to go down that road that's going to lose thousands of dollars, like Dave Ramsey was pointing out, right? This is where you got to get into the weeds a little bit here. Now, look what he admits. While Levine admits he is tech savvy, he said he believes anyone could use ChatGPT the way he did. I don't agree. I do not agree with that at all. No, they cannot. My parents could not do that. My wife's parents could not do that. My aunt and uncles could not do that. Right? They would struggle with this. I'd recommend it to everyone. ChatGPT is not coding. It is a conversation. And you're going to have that conversation with a real estate professional if you want to go that direction anyway. Now, while Levine believes AI could be a tremendous tool, he also noted that he used a real lawyer throughout the entire process. It doesn't necessarily replace professionals, he said, but it does allow us all to have the ability to be more curious and to feel more confident in the decisions we're making. To be honest, reckless article. It's a reckless article. You know, I think a true perspective of this, if you're going to be a journalist, you should research this out, not run on clickbait, ask better questions, get clarifying questions, get an opposing view, and create the story from there. This doesn't do anything. This answers 0 questions. It throws a lot out, verifies nothing, makes statements without any proof. Means nothing. But yet, it is the very thing that will get shared the most, talked about the most, and spread the most. This is why I encourage people to read. I mean, this is it. You should be reading. You should not just read articles, run with information. You shouldn't just go on social media and read a headline and share that article. You should read it. If anything you share, we have a responsibility for sharing it. Anything we say, we have a responsibility for what we said. It needs to be backed up. If I was to go out there and make the statement that, man, it's easy to sell your home through AI now, and I have no quantifying data whatsoever to back up what I said, you just need to believe me because I said it. Why? Why should I believe this guy? What has this guy done? Why should I believe people.com for this, right? Why should I believe Toria Sheffield for sharing this or Fortune for bringing it to our attention? Why should I believe it? Okay, there you go. Just think critically, use wisdom and logic, those type of things. These are just questions you have to ask as you're going through this. It's like, they didn't answer anything. So can you or can you not? I can go to ChatGPT and ask it questions. And I'll research this a little bit more, but I've yet to be able to find any quantifying data on this whatsoever. It's all these nuances. It's just nuances. And I'm not saying you can't do it this way. It'd be like the equivalent of me just saying, I'm a for sale by owner, I can go and sell my house by myself. Well, yeah, people have been doing that for years. And AI, can it help? Well, yeah, it probably can help. I mean, sure. I mean, I'm not denying that. I think AI has a place and it can absolutely help some of these people. But again, going back to what Dave Ramsey was talking about on those lists of buyer and seller agents, the importance of them and why he still thinks it's a need, those things in that list is very hard for AI to address. I mean, you just heard this guy. He had to do all the work. He had to show the house, open houses, market it, and everything. He had to take all the applications to his attorney to get reviewed. So why is the agent the bad guy here? Why are we trying to replace the agent? All right. Now, it was just so funny that when this article hit, this next article ran. This is the last article. We'll wrap it up. I'm going a little bit long today, but that's okay. I don't have a meeting until 10. So this one here is by Inman, Inman.com. It's a real estate specific news organization. They do a great job, unbiased. They just give good content. I appreciate them. And this is under the technology tab, written by, let's see. This is email Nick Pipitone. I've never seen that name before, so let me know. All right. It says AI cannot read the room. Agents weigh in on the promise and limits of artificial intelligence. Inman asked real estate pros how they're actually using AI and what they see coming next. So these are the two questions. Let's get into what agents are saying. And look, feel free to jump in the chat. No worries if you don't, you're driving, whatever, don't do that. But if you're just listening, great. You can go back later in the YouTube video and that kind of stuff and let's have some conversation about this, because this is a big one. So this is being talked about all the time. So what we're seeing here is what we just saw is the AI promise, right? That guy just laid out earlier, that you can buy and sell your home through AI. You don't need a real estate agent. That's kind of the argument he made. So now we're contrasting that with, like, what is the promise versus the reality in real estate, right? And Inman here is going to take a little bit of a deep dive into kind of this revolution that we're kind of finding ourselves in. And they're going to find that for many agents, the reality isn't matching the hype, right? When we get into the AI, it's like it has its benefits, but it has its limitations. And we're gradually beginning to find what those things are. And so let's go ahead and kind of dive into this, right? Because I think right now, AI is still a little bit of this shiny object syndrome, right? It's like, oh, this new toy, and we're kind of playing around with it. Has use cases, but I don't think it's the end all be all. I just don't. Now, it might be in some industries, but it's going to redefine parts of our industry, but it's not going to replace the real estate agent. And I think we'll see why. Yesterday, Inman reported that rather than replacing real estate agents, artificial intelligence is increasingly being used to streamline the operational side of the business. That shift, agents say, is where the technology's real value lies. In other words, AI isn't changing what makes a successful agent. It's giving them more time to lean into their work. And that's because the reality is that there are still plenty of things AI isn't good at, and plenty of tools that don't live up to the hype. Below, we dive into the promise and the limitations agents are finding as they adopt AI. Now, let's just pause for just a second, because what I want to hone in on, AI isn't changing what makes a successful agent. It says right here, it's giving them more time to lean into their work. So the back-end stuff that we do, the follow-up, that kind of stuff, the streamlining of Excel sheets, all this kind of stuff, AI has a great use case. And that's going to free up the agent to do what's really important, and that's the more face-to-face opportunities. If I can get my back end so streamlined and functioning correctly that I can spend more time face-to-face and marketing myself, I'm growing my business. And that's where AI is going to be excelling at the most. Okay, so let's just keep that in mind as we read through this. That's where we're at. What AI still can't do. That sentiment that AI can assist but not replace was nearly universal. While the technology is improving rapidly, agents consistently pointed to the same limitations: judgment, trust, and human connection. Now, let's just write those words down, because I think they've hit it, right? Is AI can take data, give you its opinion based on other data, but it's not good at making the right judgment call based on what you know about the client. It lacks the ability to build trust with that client over time. And that means the human connection is lacking, which you'll never replace inside of a human being. We crave connection. We are past the pandemic. We're beyond that. And everybody that lived through that knows exactly what I'm talking about. Like that human connection, we thrive on it. We can sure live in our silos for a little bit of time, but at some point you're going to come to that wanting to connect and wanting to relate. And the more technology tries to replace that connection, the more we end up realizing that that's taking us away from it, and we drive ourselves more into it. So that human connection part, where you feel supported and you can sympathize and have emotions and that kind of stuff with other people, that's where AI can never touch. AI cannot read the room in a heated negotiation, Raleigh's Realty's Ryan Fitzgerald said. It also cannot help a first-time buyer who is nervous. Those moments when deals get complicated, emotions run high, or decisions carry long-term consequences are where agents still provide their greatest value. If a buyer is choosing between two homes that are almost identical, Fitzgerald added, the decision isn't based on square footage, It's based on their life. That goes back, see how this all builds, goes back to Dave Ramsey and his comments that he made, right? It goes back to all of those things. Latham Jenkins, a luxury agent in Jackson Hole, Wyoming, said the same dynamic is even more pronounced at the high end of the market. In luxury real estate, the emotional and experiential component is still human-led, he said. AI helps me prepare at a higher level and execute with greater precision. Even agents who are actively adopting AI are careful about where they draw the line. Eric Leland of Realty First said he has avoided fully automated CRM systems and autonomous client workflows altogether. Overusing AI seems like a good way to kill trust. It does, and it doesn't come off genuine. I mean, can you imagine if you weren't seeing my nuances here and I was just reading a script, or if I was just reading an article and I was just like a robot? You could tell. Like, you could tell that I was doing that. A higher bar for everyone. If AI isn't replacing agents, it is changing what it means to be competitive. Across interviews, one theme came up repeatedly. AI is raising the baseline. So this is the argument for it. It is. Agents can now produce better marketing faster. They can analyze data more easily. They can respond more quickly and more professionally. As those capabilities become widespread, they stop being differentiators and start becoming expectations. All right. Let's see. I think I guess we just got multiple things. I thought there was like an interview process. I have not read this all the way through. Smarter consumers, new dynamics. AI is also changing how consumers behave. Leland said some clients have told him they found his name by asking ChatGPT or Gemini for local recommendations. It's a shift that could soon reshape how agents get discovered online. So this is a shift, right? You got to be online in different ways. I talked about this in a previous live stream as well, where Google and things like that are messing around with pulling in research and real estate listings and stuff like that. And that's an AI generated thing. Just like Google, when you do a Google search, you type that in, it gives AI suggestions. That's a big thing. And now if you're an agent, you have good reviews and a good website and all this kind of stuff comes together, then ChatGPT, Gemini, and all that's scouring the internet for their data, you could be suggested. And so that's a shift. Like, that's a big marketing shift. It's effectively replacing long-tail keyword search. Buyers are also arriving earlier in the process with more information. Many are using AI tools to research neighborhoods, schools, and pricing before they ever contact an agent. That empowers the consumer, Leland said. It makes it more important that the agent has a deep understanding. Okay, that's where, again, going back, staying informed, education, getting experience, engaging with your broker and your office, and those type of things are an ongoing thing. And this is the shift. AI is moving things rapidly. The information that's coming out is very fast, and it is very good. So as agents, we got to stay on point. On the marketing side, AI is creating both opportunities and risks. AI-generated listing descriptions and virtual staging are becoming more common, but not always more effective. Fitzgerald describes some of the results as uncanny valley, polished but slightly off and sometimes misleading. Very true in all those categories. It could get better, though. It will get better. A structural shift, not a replacement. Okay, here we go. For some agents, the bigger story isn't what AI is doing today, but what it could become. Austin Hedspeth, a broker in Bellingham, Washington, with a background in SaaS, believes many agents are still underestimating the technology. Right now, he said, most are treating AI as just another tool, something akin to social media or SEO. But over time, it could reshape how agents generate business and interact with the broader tech ecosystem. It's a categorical pivot for the industry, he said, pointing to the potential for agents to build and control more of their own lead pipelines rather than relying on third-party platforms. Even so, Hedspeth doesn't think the fundamentals will change. The core won't change, he said. Deep local insight, relationship, and community access, that's still the backbone of the business. Okay, so a couple things. We'll pause here for just a second. So the categorical pivot is those portals and the way search works and all that kind of stuff. So places like Zillow, Redfin, that aggregate MLS data, they're going to do some scrambling on the AI front, because what he's making the argument for, and he's probably got a lot of truth in this, is that when people begin their searching for homes, they're going to go online and do a search, typing in bedrooms, that kind of stuff on Google search. and it's going to start suggesting things inside of the AI model. And an agent that has a really good website and social media presence and all those type of things are more likely to come up in those search results, because again, Google is aiming to try to put the client and that lead into the hands of somebody that is going to help and represent them well. So the burden on the agent becomes greater on the tech front. So we do need to kind of pivot a little bit here in this change. But then he ends with saying, like, what's the core? The core won't change though. Like what our value proposition is in response to all this AI change does not going to change. The core of it is what? He said, deep local insight. In other words, we understand the nuances of our market. We understand the relationships of our market, the local barber, the local salon, the local restaurants and handymans, and all those little intricate details that AI can generate and pull information from, but not know personally, we come into place. The community access, how do you integrate and become connected and relate to other people, right? All of those things. The core won't change. Jenkins framed it similarly to this, calling AI a structural shift rather than pure hype or clear-cut threat. The transactional middle of the business will become more automated. That's good. That's a good statement. The transactional middle of the business will become more automated, but the highest level advisory role becomes more valuable. And this is where we hone in really hard. The advisory part, because here's the thing. We have found this to be true, is we live in the information age. I can go on right now onto my little device and find any information I want. The problem though, is I get so much information, I can't figure out what's true or what I should do. So the advisory role becomes very, very important. So an advisor that is fully equipped with all the knowledge about their market and what's going on and helping their client be able to navigate that local community market can cut through the noise that even AI generates, is that information overload. So that's where we hone in as agents. Moving fast, but not blindly. And this is the final point. One of the biggest challenges agents face right now isn't access to AI tools. It's deciding which ones actually matter. There are so many new tools coming out every week, Gash said. It's hard to determine what's really worth using and what's just a fad. Fitzgerald said the same. The problem isn't keeping up with new developments, but evaluating return on investment. Every week, there seems to be another game-changing AI product. So true. Many of these are gone in 6 months. Yep. I mean, it's like you get this hype and then you don't see it ever again. That's why many agents are taking a measured approach. South Florida realtor Alexi Morgado said he dedicates a small amount of time each day to testing tools that solve specific problems rather than chasing every new release. Even 15 minutes a day is enough to keep up if you stay focused on what actually solves problems. Know your problem, find a solution. Lillian, meanwhile, is intentionally moving more cautiously. I have seen how quickly a bad tech implementation can burn a client relationship. Yeah, we'll stop there. That's the end of this article. But that's very true. If you start just embracing all this new technology, if you're a broker owner, you know that will exasperate your own agents. They get sick of that. We owe it to our agents to kind of go through and investigate all these type of things and then slowly roll things out. None of this stuff is ever a quick implementation, because you could implement something that is gone just immediately the very next day. And now you're at ground zero again, and you've lost trust with your agents. And as agents, if you're fully embracing these processes and stuff like this with all this new AI, and you build your entire model and the way you operate off of that one AI, your entire marketing and technology is bent right there. And once that's gone, it's over, right? So we got to be very, very cognitive of those type of things. So I hope that's been a good conversation. I think we went way over. I went 15 minutes over this today, but it's been a while. I've got a lot to say. So, but that is it for today, guys. That is it. I do appreciate you guys as always for being here. I've got to go jump on and get ready for another meeting. But thank you guys. I greatly appreciate you guys taking the time out of your day to come here. I hope it is spurring you on to dive into some news, read some articles, be equipped, be a great agent. My goal here is to kind of help cut through some of this noise and just make it very relevant to you guys. Hopefully you're getting value out of this. If you are, do those things that social media always tells you to do. Click like, subscribe, share, all those type of things. So let me wrap this up. That is your real estate brief for today. And if you found this helpful, please consider hitting the like button to tell YouTube you would like to see more of this type of content. and consider subscribing and follow me on TikTok to join a community of real estate agents that are focused on building a business that is relationship focused first. There's always more. That's what I'm going to be here on tomorrow, 8:30 a.m. Eastern time, where you're watching me now. I look forward to connecting with you guys then. Have an amazing day. Go sell some houses and be a great representative, showing value to agents, building relationships and community first, and just go rock it, guys. Appreciate you guys greatly. Have a good day.